Component kits and gas seem to have a lot in common in Scrap Mechanic Survival. Both seem to be easily consumed and hard to obtain. In this video, I'll show you the best way to get gas. If you also need help finding component kits, I have a video for that as well, link in the description below. If you do end up finding this video helpful, please hit the like button and consider subscribing for more videos like this. Also, I do stream over on Twitch, link in the description below. Let's get started. Unlike component kits, there is a 100% guaranteed method of obtaining gas. Any large body of water will have crude oil spawns. Every 5 crude oil can be turned into 5 gas using the craft bot. This is the most consistent and reliable method for obtaining gas, but it's also very time consuming. So real quick, we're gonna walk down here into this body of water next to where we have our farm bill. And as you can see, all of those black gas bubbles down here are crude oil. So there's a ton of them. They go on for as far as you can see. However, collecting them, as I mentioned, takes forever. So basically you could spend hours collecting those gas bubbles down there, which give you the crude oil, and turning it into gas and end up using it all within a day or two, right? So there's actually a better way. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna head over here to our scouting vehicle that I have, and we're gonna head back over to the starting spawn area, which is actually pretty close by to where we have our farm bill right now. And I'm gonna show you the best way to get gas and also give you a couple tips on how to reduce the amount of gas you're using. So let's head on over there real quick and we'll show you the best way to find gas. Okay, so we've made our way back over to the starting spawn area. This probably looks familiar. This is what I showed in the component kit video if you've seen that. If not, once again, link down in the description below. And as mentioned, pretty much everyone's map's gonna look like this at the start. The starting spaceship is just over there. As you can see, the smoke billowing up. What we're gonna have here is we're gonna have a bunch of hay bots, which we're not really worried about. We're gonna take care of them anyway, just because they're in the way. And they also could drop component kits while we're here. And we're just gonna use the Spud shotgun because it 2-shots them if you don't miss. Easy to take care of them. But what we're mainly looking for here is these green supply crates. So real quick, before I show anything, my inventory right now has 0 gas in it. I think there's like 9 gas in the car. So what we're basically gonna be looking for is these green supply crates. And for some reason, these tend to have a lot of gas in them, especially at the beginning of the game. So far we haven't had any luck. But the other day I actually went over here and just searched this building, the building behind me, and the starting area. And I ended up finding 21 gas. So right there we got 3 plus a component kit. We're just not even gonna bother with the hay bots unless they get bothered with us. Oh, this guy's bothered with us, so take care of him. We dropped a component kit, nice. This guy got through. Get your shots. Okay. Come back and get that scrap metal a little bit later. We're gonna head up here and grab the rest of these crates. And yeah, what you're gonna find is if you're doing normal looting by going around to the ruined buildings, you should end up finding plenty of gas. A sunshake. So we're only gonna grab the stuff that we actually really care about. We're taking the sunshakes just because it's easy. It's easy for quenching the thirst. And okay, so far that building that time only had 3 gas in it, but this building has some crates in it, and as I mentioned, there's a bunch of crates over here as well. And there's several buildings like right down the street from the workshop, which I know also have a bunch of crates in them, so check those out later if I don't find a lot right here. So there's 3 more gas. And yeah, like I mentioned before, these green crates do respawn every couple of hours in game, so you can always make sure to come back and check them, especially if you're low on any resources. They're there all the time. These guys will just take care of with a hammer because they're not really a threat. And let's see what we got here. Got some more gas, perfect. Nothing in the chest this time. Let's check the supply crates out here. There's more gas. And of course, this is all RNG, but having done this dozens of times at this point, I can just tell you that, especially back at the starting area, there just seems to be a lot of gas in the containers. And honestly, this is the method I normally use. Now, of course, every once in a while, since you do need clam glue, if I'm underwater, or one of my friends I'm playing with is underwater, make sure to grab some crude oil. There's more gas. There's more gas. Chemicals, we'll just grab those just to take them. I think we need the bearings right now. So far it looks like we have 18 gas, and we haven't even hit the long row back here on this dirt road. Now, sometimes there's only a couple of crates on here, sometimes there's a lot. Just depends on the day. Yep, there's 3 more gas. And yeah, as you can see, there's so many resources here. You can end up finding pretty much every resource you need. I'm grabbing these fruits and vegetables, honestly, more gas and chemicals, just because we're using it to make sandwiches, because sandwiches are pretty good sustain, especially if you have a decent sized farm. I also need the chemicals for finishing up the base that we're currently building. Red beetroot. Now let's see if we get lucky over here. Sometimes there's like 3 or 4 supply crates around the ship. Other times there's none. Okay, so we got 2 right here. Perfect. And there's more gas. Carrot. And of course, whatever resources drop that you might actually need, be sure to grab them. I always make sure I grab the sunshakes just because it seems like the characters always end up getting thirsty, and that's an easy way to quench thirst. So yeah, that's the starting area, right? So we just searched the 2 buildings right at the start, and the supply crates are up here. Sometimes there's one over here. I don't see it. It will be easy to see because I cut down most of the trees over here. There's also sometimes one down by the water, and there actually is one down there this time. Let's go check that out. Maybe we get lucky and get some gas from this one as well. Plus it's on the way back anyway. No gas that time. So far we have collected 27 gas from the starting building, and for the 2 starting buildings and the little path that leads back to the spaceship. So that should be enough gas, honestly, to last you for quite a long time, depending on how you're playing. Okay, so we're back at our farm. Now, one thing you may have noticed is this vehicle looks a little bit different than the vehicles I've shown in my other videos. This is actually the world that I've been playing on my stream with some friends. So like I said, it's a lot more advanced than my solo world. And one of the tips I actually have for gas consumption, and as we'll show again once I found 27 gas in about, what, 5 minutes or so maybe, going back to the starting area. And like I said, there's lots of buildings around where the workshop is. So in this case, the workshop's actually across the water over there. There's tons of buildings over there. There's actually a building right across the water here. These buildings all have supply crates in them that respawn every couple of hours, and those supply crates all have a chance of having gas in it. So this little car is what I do to scout around in. Now, if I'm doing like some serious looting, we actually have a bigger car that one of my friends built, but I use this when I'm scouting around, just looking at new areas. And if I'm just going around to collect supply crates and I don't really need a container, I'm gonna use this car, because as you can see, it only used 1 gas, driving probably about 3 or 4 minutes away and driving all the way back over. And it's really fuel efficient. So if you're looking to scout around the area, I recommend definitely using a smaller vehicle. It's made out of metal 3. It's kind of compact. Now, metal is obviously a little bit heavier than wood, but I kind of liked how the metal looks, so that's why I went with that. So yeah, that's that. Upgrading your engine does, I think, improve fuel efficiency slightly, although I don't think it's a noticeable difference. Maybe over the long haul it'll be a noticeable difference, but I haven't really noticed that much of a difference. Mainly I did it just to increase the control of the car. So yeah, that's one tip, is to have a scouting vehicle that's smaller. Now also over here we have our tree cutter, and as you can see, this tree cutter is only a little bit larger than the scouting vehicle I have. Now, I've seen some crazy cool looking tree cutters that people have made, and just looking at them, they look like they're probably really fuel inefficient because they're just huge. They'll have like the resource collectors on the back of them and these huge cages on the front of them. So of course, if they're made out of piston engines or a bearing engine or something like that, they're not going to use fuel. But if you're just looking to use a regular normal gas engine, this is definitely something you want to think about. This thing cuts down most of the trees. It only takes a minute or so to cut down a large tree. And the biggest tip I have here is I use a gas engine to power the car, but I have an electric engine, and it's only level 2, to power the saw blade. And I do the same thing on my drill down here as well. The electric engine works perfectly fine for the saws and drills, and you use almost no batteries, especially if you're kind of careful, even if you have it running all the time, but if you're kind of careful. So this is the same thing. This is the drill car that I have. This is what I use to farm the large rocks. And this thing also has a gas engine that powers it. Now on the back, it's huge. So what I used to do is I used to transport a refinery bot, 2 resource collectors, and a chest on it while I was farming. And I noticed that I was using way too much gas. So what I do now is I'll transport them with me, and what I'll do is I'll set up the refinery bot, the resource collectors, and the chest in a field in the area of where I'm farming. And after I collect all the resources, I'll take the resource collectors over there and then farm it that way. That way, while I'm moving this thing around, it's going to use far less gas. Now, another thing I did on this one, which I'm probably going to do on the saw car, the tree cutter as well at some point in the future, just haven't got around to it, is this thing actually has 3 pistons that power it, so I can actually sit next to a large rock and a lot of times either not move at all or maybe just hold the W key down a little bit. Because what it does is it can go up, it can go out, and it can also go down. And then, like I said, the drill, so if I'm just sitting here like this, the drills are using the electric engine, which is really efficient. And because I've added these pistons to it, it lets me do very little, it uses very little gas, basically. So a lot of times I'll just pull up to a large rock and I can just sit there and just maneuver around with these pistons and break most of the rock. And it's saved me so much gas over time. So yeah, those are a couple of tips. Like I said, if you can afford to use electric engines for the blades and the drills, I would 100% recommend that. And just try to go with like compact cars. These huge machines that I've seen people build, while they look really awesome, if you're not using a piston or a bearing engine, they're just gonna use so much oil that you're gonna be constantly farming it, even if you're using the methods I'm using. So this is kind of what we did. We basically, like, maybe once a day or once every other day, just go, as we're looting around or doing stuff, like, so I'll go collect a bunch of trees and rocks, and then maybe afterwards for like 15 or 20 minutes, just drive around and hit up the nearby buildings that I know have the green supply crates in them, and I'll just find more than enough gas. This gas will last me for the rest of the day, probably for maybe a day or two, honestly, if I'm just driving around with it. So yeah, that's the tips I have for finding gas. Once again, you can get the crude oil that's under the water. That's definitely an option. Or you can do the less reliable method, but the one that I probably prefer. It's just less tedious, which is just in your normal looting, make sure you hit up every ruined building and hit every green supply crate or gold supply crate that you find, because there's a good chance they're gonna have oil in it. So once again, we found 27 oil in about 5 minutes of looting today. And that should be enough oil, if you're using your gas wisely, to get you through easily a several-hour play session, if not more than one. So yeah, if you did find this video helpful, make sure you click that like button and consider subscribing for more videos like this. And once again, I do stream over on Twitch, link down in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.